In today's latest news, we discuss the aftermath of us being knocked out of the Champions League against Real Madrid last night. We discuss manager updates, Nagelsmann, Luis Enrique, plus much more. And to end things, we discuss what Thiago Silva and Didier Drogba had to say about the current state of the season. Right now, my friends, we have a ton of things to break down and discuss. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let's try and get 1,500 likes for today's vids. I'd love to see a number like that, of course, and share your thoughts and opinions below in the comment section. Now, before we get into anything, I have one big announcement to get out of the way first. This video is sponsored today by Chelsea's official betting partners in PariMatchUK. PariMatch are currently giving away the opportunity to win hospitality tickets for Chelsea vs Brentford on the 26th of April. And to be in with a chance of winning, you must have a PariMatchUK account. You must opt into promotions and you must bet over £40 on any football market before 11 PM this Thursday on the 20th of April. To stay informed with any future ticket giveaways and Chelsea betting specials, make sure to follow at PariMatchUK across their social media platforms. You're going to find all the right links in the description below, so thank you to PariMatchUK for sponsoring today's video. So right now, let's start with things and let's discuss the aftermath of being knocked out in the Champions League. To start with things, we learned that boehly, and co, all the owners, attended the dressing room after yesterday's defeat. But instead of being critical, instead of being harsh, this time they were more supportive. They were shaking players' hands and they kept things to themselves. For me, the impression I'm getting from this is that these guys know, okay, a lot of you guys aren't going to be here next season. You're not going to ruin our investment. We need to balance the squad out. And in tomorrow's video, I'm going to break down the players I think we need to keep, we need to sell, and who needs to be loaned out as well too. Because, you know, in my opinion, yeah, we find ourselves in this mess because all the talent we buy, there is no real purpose behind it. There's no real core identity or philosophy of play that really unites them together. You know, it's just about winning all the time. And, you know, we get to a point where the winning isn't enough. You know, there's nothing that you can take forward into future seasons. There's no progression. We haven't really seen any players developing here other than maybe Reece James, and that's not really good enough when you're spending so much money over these past 4 years on guys who are under 22 years old. So a lot needs to be discussed and a lot has to be revamped in the summer if we have any hopes of getting Champions League football, which will still be very hard to do for next season. We do know that Paul Winstonley, Lawrence Stewart, these guys are going to spend a lot of time this summer. They're going to have a very busy summer in helping us cut down the squad. So selling players is on the list of priorities, and some rumors are suggesting that right now, nearly everyone other than like the new January signings are up for sale. So I guess if any player has any hopes of remaining here for the following season, they have to use the remaining games this season to impress people at this football club to maintain their future now. And I guess this sentiment was echoed by Thiago Silva, who came out after yesterday's defeat and gave a very honest admission of where we are this season. As Thiago himself says, listen, everyone talks too much about replacing managers, but I think we as players must also take responsibilities. You know, we've had 3 managers this season, a 4th with Bruno as well too. We've lost to David Lampard. We have failed to win. Everybody is talking about the manager, but we must look at what has been done wrong and try to make things different. Now, interestingly, Silva does say this. He does say that I think the first step has been made and it has been an incorrect step, but it has been made. We can't be blaming the managers if we don't take responsibility. It's a hard period for the club with a lot of indecision. A change of ownership, new players arriving. We've had to increase the size of the changing room because it doesn't fit the size of the squad. A positive point is we have a ton of amazing players, but the manager can only pick 11 from a squad of 30 something. That's very tough. Some can't make the squads. We signed 8 in January. We need to stop and put a strategy in place, otherwise next season we can make the same mistakes. And I think Thiago Silva is talking pure facts. Now, I've been saying this myself for a long time. I know a lot of you guys watching me have been saying the same sentiment. You can't expect miracles when you have such a bloated squad. Like, it's easy for us who are not part of that changing room, who are outside the club, yeah, to say, okay, just use this guy, that guy, who cares if this guy's not playing? You're dealing with the consequences of actions every single time. And I kind of feel like with this situation in particular this season, This undermines any manager. I don't think any manager is that good that they can easily tackle working with a bloated squad, keeping all these guys happy, whilst finding the perfect system and perfect training sessions. It's not going to work like that. And if Thiago Silva himself is saying the fact that we can't be in the same position again of signing even more players on top, it tells you that the players themselves are finding things difficult. And it makes sense, and it goes back to what I constantly say. There's been no continuity of ideas, of training, of philosophy or anything. So it's no surprise we find ourselves in this mess. Of course, players must take responsibility, but in my opinion, that's to a certain degree. Because if you don't have that framework of a system behind you, if there's no understanding with your teammates too, after every single loss, your confidence will get lower and lower and lower. I think that's what we're seeing with many players at this point in time, especially when Lampard took over, because it's like the fourth manager this season. None of us expected this at all when we signed for the football club. So I've got sympathies here, and as Thiago said, it's now time to start streamlining and fine-tuning the squad now if we have any hopes of doing anything in the future. So my friends, share your thoughts and opinions. I mean, how do you feel about what Thiago Silva had to say about this current situation? Let us all know below. And right now, let's move on to discussing latest news behind manager updates. And to start off, let's talk Luis Enrique. Now, I'm going to let you guys, or some of you guys, brace yourselves for this news right now. You're not going to like it. But as reported today, Luis Enrique is out the race to become our new manager for next season. Now, of course, he impressed with his interview earlier. But it seemed like there was a few complications where it felt like the club didn't think he had the right compatibility for the type of club they're trying to build and grow, if that even makes any sense, because I think none of us really know what we're trying to do. I guess my guess is that, okay, we want to do like an RB Leipzig thing times 10. That could be successful, but that also takes quite a lot of time to get done right. Regardless, I heard some context behind the scenes in terms of like, the interviews and the questions being posed to Enrique. And Enrique wanted to have a bit more control. Like Enrique wanted more patience to develop his philosophy for the game. Because if you're introducing like a vertical type of positional play game, that's not going to happen in 1 week or 2 weeks. That's going to take a bit of time because it's like you're retraining that muscle memory. You're like retraining the code of the players. So it only makes sense that more time is needed to cultivate those ideas. Enrique also asked for a more mobile striker. He wanted wingers that can get past their man. He wanted a better standard and quality of winger. And it seems like the amount of control and say that Enrique ideally wanted to have was something this club didn't feel comfortable offering. And I think it's interesting because throughout the past 10 years, we've seen everything at this football club. On one hand, we've seen managers who have been given more control and say to really determine and affect the future of the squads. Go back to Mourinho's second spell here, where guys like De Bruyne left, Salah left, Lukaku, plus a ton of talents that never should have left to begin with, and who knows how our future looks right now. Whilst on the other hand, we've made the mistake of not giving enough say to managers, which ultimately means that their work is getting undermined. We need to find that right balancing point, and I think the only way to determine what manager we want is when we decide what club are we trying to be. This season has been a total mess. The summer business, we spent millions on experienced guys who aren't that good in my opinion. And then a few months later in January, the plan is to sign all these guys under 22 for big money. There's no consistency there, and you're undermining the manager who has to work with this mess. So it seems like Enrique is out the running alongside guys like Ruben Amorim. But Pochettino is high up the rank now, and let's not forget that before we signed Graham Potter, Pochettino had lots of interviews with us and came quite close to getting the job. So could Pochettino and Nagelsmann be the main favourite too right now? Who knows, but it kind of seems that way. And I guess my final thing is, the club are still adamant that they're going to be very fair and open-minded when it comes to interviewing more managers and keeping dialogue open. But we don't really know who these other managers are. But maybe it's all about keeping things in the shadows, keeping things secretive, because I'd imagine most managers we're talking to, they're actually managing clubs right now. So the last thing these clubs need is for the press to start leaking stories about like a team's manager holding talks with us, knowing the fact that it could all be in vain if you don't secure the job at the end. So it does make sense to keep things secretive if that's the play right now. But I'd be curious to know who the other managers are, because All these guys have different ideas, different philosophies, mentalities. We have to find the right one we believe in and want to actually give time and patience towards now. So that's the first part out of the way. Let's move on now to discuss the latest behind Julian Nagelsmann. Now, as I've been saying for a while, and as many are saying on social media too, it seems like Nagelsmann is the main favourite for right now. I think it's quite common, and I think Nagelsmann is very interested in signing for us. That is the big difference right now. Obviously, Lawrence Stewart, Vivell, they've already worked alongside him. They've been pushing the club to sign him. These guys have big say in terms of the direction of this club, so it's no surprise that they're turning to a man they have a ton of faith in. Now, some experienced figures in Germany are trying to tell Nagelsmann to not sign for us. Of course, Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid plus other clubs are going to need managers in the summer. So it's not like a certain right now, but it's going to encourage us to get a deal wrapped up before the summer to make sure this guy's off the market before any of our rivals can get their hands on him. Still though, Nagelsmann impressed a lot during his recent official interview with the club, and he has asked for a new striker, a 6 and a goalkeeper for next season. I think this makes a lot of sense. I mean, all our rivals have these main positions filled out right now, and we've been lacking in this department for a while now. Experienced figures in German football are advising Nagelsmann away from signing for us, and the reason behind why is because they say the club has no structure. There's lots of indecision with the owners and with leadership, and when there's indecision, that can come back to bite you in the ass. For me, the fact that Nagelsmann is asking for a 6 maybe implies that we could use like some form of a back 4 system under his ownership, and I think it could work. I'm gonna make more videos in the future breaking down Nagelsmann in more detail. I think I've discussed him quite a bit in general. I'm not opposed to his appointment at all. I think the guy has some talent for sure. He's a very adaptable, moldable guy, and I really hope that he brings the right ideas and solutions to this football club, because I think there's a ton of talent here, and we have to start maximizing, developing and growing the talent that we keep on spending a lot of money towards, but have no plans to really improve in the long term. And I guess one thing I'd say about Nagelsmann, it's just a personal worry, but if he does introduce like a wing-back system, a back 3, and not bring something new, I feel like, do wing-back systems have a long shelf life in the Premier League? You know, it's a completely different league, more intensity, more pace, more width is relied upon. I'd like to think he comes with something new that isn't just using wing-backs, because we have other solutions, I think, in this squad too. So my friends, on that note, that's going to be the end for the match update news. Share your thoughts and opinions. Right now, let's end things by discussing what Didier Drogba, our legend, had to say about the state of the season. That is the manager news out of the way. Let's now end things by discussing what our legend Didier Drogba had to say about the current state of the season. And to be fair, he was not impressed whatsoever. Now, Drogba was recently interviewed by Canal Plus, and in this interview, he revealed that he doesn't recognize this football club anymore. He understands, of course, that yes, there are new owners here, they're trying to do things a bit differently, but he kind of feels like since Abramovich has left and that era is behind us, we're missing a little bit of class, you know? Too many people have left the football club. It's not just players, it's staff members, medical team, even the groundsman, for God's sake. And Drogba says that we should go back to the principles and values that we used to have. Drogba says that he doesn't recognize this club. It's not the same club. It's a new owner, new vision. Drogba says that we compared this time to Roman's time, where Roman signed a lot of players, but the decisions were very intelligent. He mentions players like Petr Cech, Shevchenko, Crespo, Essien, himself, Malouda. He goes on. These types of players were signed to help win titles. These guys have that experience. The strategy these days now, though, is completely different. We're betting on signing younger players, but a dressing room of over 30 players is difficult for any manager to take control of. And I think as we're seeing now, players who have played the game, everyone is critical of the size of the squads. Like, I've been saying this for so long, it wasn't excuses. It's just a common sense thing that you're going to undermine what anything can be done behind the scenes because there's too many players right now. We made mistakes, and I think the obvious mistake was most of these guys didn't have to come now. Most of these guys could have been signed on pre-contracts. I don't understand why that wasn't the case, and I'd love to understand the reasoning as to why this was decided, because it's just a very ridiculous decision in hindsight. Anyway, Drogba says that currently we lack charismatic leaders. You need players that take on the game, that assume their responsibilities. You need a player that brings a bit of madness to the stadium. And I think Drogba is making a fair point, because as I've been saying in this video, what type of club are we trying to become? Because it's all very good signing the best under 23, under 24 players in Europe, but we also got to be a bit realistic. Are we expecting all these young guys to instantly just kick things off straight away and instantly be ready to start challenging for the title? Like, look at a club like Real Madrid's. Look how they balance experience alongside top class young players. You know, they help each other. The young players can feed off the experience of their seniors alongside them and feel a bit more faith and more trust. If there are difficult moments in the game, they have figures they can turn towards to help them see out difficult moments. And on the other hand, the young guys inject that youthfulness, that pace, that speed that really makes the lives of the senior guys even easier. There's this balancing act that works beautifully well, and I think right now we're going in one direction, which is focusing on youth, which I'm okay with, but there are realistic consequences that come from that, because these guys aren't the finished article. When we're spending big money on these players, we're spending that money knowing the fact that one day they can be worth this value. That's why we're spending this money. And if the plan, as we're seeing this season, you know, they still expected us to get Champions League football at least and win trophies, even though so many things are changing and happening behind the scenes during the season. Do we have realistic expectations for the following season? Because, you know, relying on youth players is great, but you need to give these guys an environment, a culture to grow, improve and learn. And if we're not doing that, then in my opinion, it's a complete waste of time. And I can understand what Didier Drogba is saying. Like, for example, look at Wesley Fofana. I think he's been very impressive this season. I think he played a better game in the second leg compared to the first leg. But in the first leg, yeah, in the big game where, you know, you need your big guys to be on point, he really struggled. And he showed that youthful experience because that's his first time playing Champions League football. Now, are we expecting guys who've only played their first season of Champions League football to instantly help us get back on the map? I'm not too sure, to be fair with you. And knowing the fact that we plan to sign even more players under the age of like 23 in the summer periods. Of course, it's nice on paper that this team's going to grow over time, but the practicalities of implementing this and making this happen in real life, it's not quite the same. But anyway, my friends, I have a lot more thoughts and opinions to share, but to do justice to them, I have to discuss them in a separate video later this week, so make sure you guys stay tuned because it's time to start talking about next season now, because this season is basically over. So my friends, share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about things? Let us know. And on that note, I'm Nini FC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.